dream, dream. Hello, I'm Shruti Ramani, and I'm a musician, singer, composer, and an Indian classical musician that now is also partaking in jazz, and I write fusion music, and I play a couple of instruments other than singing. And I moved to Canada from India like 4 years ago to study jazz music at Capilano University, and it's been a beautiful journey. But it all started, I guess, when I was 2 years old. I kind of knew I wanted to be a musician all my life. And my dad is an avid musician himself who had a lot of instruments at home, and he even named me Shruti, which is a coincidence, but it actually translates to microtones in music. So I think he had a little bit of a prediction that I might be inclined towards music. So at the age of 2 or 3, he'd just like hand me a harmonium, which kind of resembles a piano. And yeah, I would just plonk on it and play with it. And I even broke one, and he didn't mind. It was really expensive, but he was just the most encouraging dad, and my mom too. They've both been the most supportive parents. So I kind of knew all along that I wanted to be a musician, and I just wanted to study music this entire time, but I had to go through the schooling system and everything like everyone else has to, just sailing along, waiting for the music school to come along in my life. So yeah, after 12th grade, I joined a music conservatory in Chennai, which is KM Music Conservatory, which is actually started by Dr. A.R. Rahman, who's a Grammy Award-winning music director in India. So yeah, learned a bunch of Western classical traditions. That was my introduction to sight reading, Western notation and music and stuff. But yeah, predominantly I hadn't really heard any English music in my life. I had 8 to 10 years of training with my guru, Dr. Ritu Johri from Agra. And she's one of the most phenomenal teachers, and I've been so lucky to be able to train under her for the last, I still train with her, but I'm in Canada now, so that makes it a little bit more complicated than it was. But I kind of immersed myself right after I was done with school. I immersed myself into just doing music full time and trying to make a career out of it. And luckily, I did get many fabulous opportunities as a young musician. I was a part of this eight-part jazz vocal group named Nuffs, which was also started by A.R. Rahman. And yeah, we did cool, eclectic arrangements of Bollywood tunes and stuff, but arranged in a jazzy manner, like in a jazz style. And we toured around the world doing a couple of gigs. So that was a beautiful experience. And jazz was really not on my, it wasn't on my radar. Jazz wasn't really on my radar for a long time. But something about doing Western classical music just didn't seem right. And one day I stumbled upon a ballad sung by Ella and some tunes by Nora Jones. And I was like, this is some of the most beautiful music I've ever heard. And I immediately felt like jazz was my calling. I made a rash decision, took a huge jazz student loan to pay international fee. But it was all worth it because jazz is such a rich art form. Comes from, like, it has such an rich history. It just has so much to offer to people that are trying to express themselves, are trying to show a piece of themselves through their music. I feel like jazz is the gateway or the ultimate way to really be yourself, which is why I feel like, I guess that makes a lot of sense considering it comes from the struggles and the life experiences of Black American musicians. It's just got such a rich history. So I'm just humbled and honored to be able to partake and to be able to learn such a beautiful art form. And it's my aim to kind of bring my Indian classical background and bring it to this world of jazz and kind of mold them together in a way that they both shine but coexist. And they express a true part of me, which is why I write a lot of fusion music. I'm trying new things. I try to take Indian classical melodies or melodies based on Indian classical traditions, and I try to incorporate jazz harmony into it in the hopes that people in Canada and people elsewhere that may have not heard this kind of music or this type of music can find like a middle ground to kind of be able to partake in it and to be able to immerse themselves, or for them to be able to understand something that's completely different from what they've been growing up hearing, but still be able to relate to it. And I don't know, that's the most beautiful thing to me about music in general, is it kind of transcends all these things that is color, race, but still a huge part of all of these things. But when you're in the act of playing music and bringing people together, there's a certain, the walls come down, if that makes sense. So yeah, I've just had, I don't know, the most beautiful opportunities. I've met so many encouraging, supportive people since I've moved to Canada. I've started a band of my own with some of the most prolific musicians in the Canadian jazz industry, and just like Canadian music scene in general. So my band Raghavers consists of Jody Prosnick on bass, Noah French Nolan on piano, and Nicholas Bracewell on drums. And they're the most amazing human beings, also the most talented players as well. So yeah, we make all kind of fusion music, and we're a collaborative ensemble, and we're trying to put some new music out there. And just, yeah, putting it out into the universe and hoping that people relate to this in some form or the other, or yeah, that I can bring some joy into their lives in some way. Yeah, performing in India, well, it is an interesting dynamic because there's the kind of music that will fetch you money and opportunities that will fetch you money, and those are not really aligned to my interests in general. So India has a big, I'm sure everyone's familiar with this, but India is known for Bollywood. Bollywood is one of the biggest movie industries in the world with regards to production, music, and everything, actually. Just, yeah, and I feel like Bollywood music is one of the most popular forms of music, and it's the commercial pop, rather the pop equivalent of the Western world. So yeah, I feel like there's all of these art forms, much like the Western world, wherein jazz and classical music, they kind of take the back seat, and there's like these niche group of people that appreciate and admire it, and people may say jazz and classical are struggling, but I disagree. I just find that you have to be at the right places at the right time, and you have to find the right people. It may not be on MTV, but it's certainly there, and there are opportunities. And with regards to jazz and classical and things in India, there is a niche scene. There are really fabulous musicians, especially the city that I grew up in, which is Mumbai. Mumbai has an eclectic bunch of really talented jazz musicians, which is surprising considering like in jazz in India don't really have that much of a history, but they also do. Jazz is slowly brewing within the city, I feel like, and there are people that are starting to listen to jazz, and there are kids that are getting into jazz, and there is actually very recently there's been a jazz school that opened in India. It's called SAM. So that is a huge step. So I feel like India is also embracing all these different kinds of cultures and like trying to bring it in to their mainstream. But I also feel like, yeah, there is a certain disconnect or between the commercial scene and the opportunities with regards to doing this kind of niche kind of music. So the opportunities are harder to come by in some ways. But yeah, it really depends on where you are at the right time, if it's the right time at the right place. Playing music in Nanaimo has been quite an interesting experience. It's quite a cultural hub as opposed to what people think, because it's such a small town and people think it's not lively and there's not much happening in Nanaimo, but it's quite the contrary. Considering the little places, the little gems that actually host these jazz scenes, like the Vault, the Queens, as some examples. I've played the Vault, and I feel like it's one of those cozy experiences where you see familiar faces. The audience is receptive. They're all, not chatting over you. They're attentive. They're there to listen. And I find that is a beautiful thing about Nanaimo, is however intimate it may be, but people are very open to music. Moving to Canada as an Indian artist and not really knowing what to expect, and landing up in Nanaimo as the first place I could have been, really, I had challenges because it was, culture shock, like anyone would experience. But I found that musically, it was a very warm place, and it gave me the best start that I could possibly have gotten as an immigrant. Yeah, it's just one of those things. Compared to back at home, if people were playing jazz or something, I think there would be people talking over it, because I feel like there's more of a need for upbeat music that you can dance to, things like that. But again, I'm strictly talking about the commercial scene. If I were to go to an Indian classical concert, for example, it would be in a big concert hall. Everyone is pin drop silence, and there's no clapping. Much like when you would go to a symphony or something, right? You have cues, you have social cues. You don't want to interrupt the concert. There's right things to do, there's wrong things to do. Don't show up in your slippers and shorts, right? Things like that. I feel like it's quite comparable, the niche Indian classical scene, where people feel like it's dying and it needs some upliftment, and the same thing with jazz and classical in the Western world. So I feel like there's a big parallel there, and there's a big parallel between the pop scene in the Western world and the Bollywood music industry, because there's a lot of, it's more about a complete package as opposed to being a musician. I feel like when it comes to pop and commercial stuff, which is exactly what is needed in the Bollywood industry as well, is that you have to have the personality, the voice, you have to have stage presence, you need to be dressed, you need to be able to move and engage the audience and things, much like a pop star would, right? Like you have all these roles that you have to fulfill, especially being in music videos and things like that. Versus the niche jazz musicians and the Indian classical musician scene, where like they've spent their lifetimes just grinding and working on their art, working on their music, and probably lack some of the other things that you need as a well-rounded pop musician, where just the stage presence, I guess. If you're stuck in a practice room for 10 hours a day, not talking to people, I don't think you'd do very well socially. So I feel like there's so many things that factor into how musicians present themselves depending on the music that they do. It's an interesting thing. I dress really well, but that's about it. I like to speak to people through my music, and I feel like it does all the speaking. I don't move much on stage. I'm in my zone, and that's just it. I just go on stage and I do my thing. And I guess that's not what everyone's looking for in a commercial scene, say, where you can actually make money. So yeah, I guess there's also, like, pick your battles. Do you want to be in the music industry in some way and make a lot of money at the same time? I guess there are options. And like, is it okay if you made still a good amount of money, but not in millions of dollars in royalties, say thousands of dollars, because you can still be an accomplished jazz musician and there are a lot of opportunities. So say you're still making a good amount of money, but there's a kind of like a discrepancy in the lifestyles, I feel like. But yeah, that's the battle. Is I rather care about the music in itself and what I want to put out there. And luckily for me, the people of Nanaimo, the people of Canada have been so receptive and warm and loving and kind towards me and my music. It really is just so special that I've met so many people with just big hearts, just warm people. So I think that's the best part about Canada. Yeah. Sa ni ga ni ga ni ga ni pa ni sa ga 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 ni sa ga ma pa ma ni pa ni sa ga ma pa ni pa sa ni pa ni sa ga ma ni ga ga ni ga ni ga ni ga ni pa ni sa ga ma ga sa. साजन मोरे घर आए साजन मोरे घर आए साजन मोरे घर आए साजन मोरे घर आए प्रेम पिया हम पाए प्रेम पिया हम पाए प्रेम पिया हम पाए प्रेम पिया हम पाए साजन मोरे घर आए साजन मोरे घर आए मंगल गाओ चौक पुराओ हम बदनी नि दा गा गमगा गमगा गमनी 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 नि गा गमनी नि सा साजनी साजनी नि बाबा मामा गा गा नि सा गमा बा नि सा गमा बा नि सा गमा बा नि दा सा ni sa ga ma pa ni sa sa ni sa ga ma pa ni sa sa ga ga sa ga ga sa ma ga sa ga ga sa ma ga sa ga ga sa ga ga sa ga ga ma ma ga sa ni pa ma ga ga ma ni ga ma pa ni sa Gama bani bama gama gama bani bama gama gama bani bama gama 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 bani sa gama ba gama gami gama gani bama gama bani sa gama gama ga sa mama ga sa pa ma ga ga ga. Mangal gao chok purao, mangal gao chok purao. प्रेम पिया हम पाए, प्रेम पिया हम पाए। साजन मोरे घर आए, साजन मोरे घर मोरे घर मोरे घर